So I think, Gar, because Chris isn't in the room, you have to call the meeting to order.
I'm hereby calling the meeting to order.
1 second.
Oh,
I left you guys on mute because I didn't want you guys saying anything.
okay. You have to do a redo.
In the absence of the exalted chair, I, vice chair, am hereby calling the meeting to order.
Just say who's in the room.
And in the room, we have Susan Philbrick, Garland Morse, Sarah Mellish, Ann Harrison, Tiffany Marletta.
Who's going home?
Who's leaving?
And who is on Zoom?
Chris,
Chris
All the exalted
only.
leaders here.
Anyone else?
Sandy maybe?
Sandy Bodmer Turner?
You should know
That's
that,
here.
Sue.
Can you see the participants?
Yes, I'm here.
She's here.
Sandy's here.
Sandy's here, okay.
Do you know how to see the participants?
Anyone else?
I'm doing gallery, hold on. Yes, Sandy is on.
Okay.
I do not see Mike Pratt or Denny.
If Denny's not coming, how about Richard?
I do not see Richard.
Okay.
Okay, I guess we will refer now to the agenda for our meeting. First, an acknowledged receipt of correspondence. Have we received any correspondence?
Do you know Chris?
I do know, it's Gail.
Yeah.
No, there was no correspondence.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Secondly, we have an updated schedule, of which the last version was sent to the members.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't.
I have to admit, I haven't seen it either.
Has that gone out, Chris?
Might have been before the holidays.
No.
No?
Yeah, I don't think it has. But we'll send one out tomorrow.
Can you
Okay.
give it to Gail to send out so that we get stuff from a central place?
Sure, I'll give it to Gail to give out. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
We actually changed a couple of dates just at the previous meeting, so we'll get those updated and included.
Yeah, so don't cement it anywhere or laminate it anywhere. It's subject to change again. Just FYI.
That's why it's so hard to keep all the dates.
Yeah.
But we're doing it.
Next, a discussion of guiding principles. I show 3 guiding principles. A, determination of boundaries. B, dimensional requirements. And C, parking.
Is that?
Do we have, Chris, do we have any discussion on this?
So I had sent out to everybody a list of, I sort of took the list that we put together with Emily
Yeah.
and reformatted them a little bit and sent them out to everybody. And I'm hoping that's what we can discuss.
And they're changed. They're not what we had
I would-
originally done.
They're not really changed, no, they're just reformatted.
No, the districts are different.
No, I'm talking about the guiding principles, not the actual district.
I didn't receive anything on guiding principles.
No.
No.
Don't remember seeing anything.
Oh, guys, it was in an email of December 12th,
Oh, Jesus Christ.
and Chris sent it out reporting on a planning board meeting. So it was, I guess, a day or two after a planning board meeting.
And who sent it?
Chris, he sent it to Ann, Gar, me, Sue, you, Richard, Denny, Michael, with a copy to Gail and Greg and Emily.
Okay. I do remember having seen it on the 12th, but I don't have it with me. I'm in the same boat.
Uh-oh.
And we did get something from Innes Associates with a list of,
But it doesn't have guiding principles.
No. It's just a list of districts. I didn't understand really what that was.
I'm wondering,
Richard's got it. So I could email that right now to everybody. Would that be helpful?
I have it in front of me.
It was a pretty good list. I thought it was a nice consolidation of what was it, 20 or 21 points that Emily culled from her conversation with the task force.
Yeah, it was kind of frustrating to me that we didn't get anything back, on what we did that session. If I'd known, I would have taken pictures of it, but we didn't ever get any output from that I
After
saw.
we marked up those maps and stuff.
And after we did the list on the board, we didn't get anything.
You didn't? Because
No.
I got
Yeah,
this.
there was something though. There was something, but I mean.
Didn't
it's
come to
like
me.
we're all hazy from Christmas, and there was something that she sent out
you're right.
that listed all the 20 things.
Oh, we went to Chris and
Chris
It
and
went to
Gail.
Greg, Chris, and Gail.
well, that doesn't help the rest of us.
I think it
I got
got sent to the rest of us subsequently. But I don't have the covering email with it, so I can't tell you a date.
Well, I can make sure everybody gets it. Would it be helpful to go over the guiding principles, just read them out loud so people can think about it?
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I don't understand, actually, Chris, pardon me, I don't understand the determination of boundaries, dimensional requirements, and parking, and how that relates to what I thought was a much more sensible list that you had put together on December 11th.
I just put those in as topics that I thought would be worth discussing.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, so they're not actually sub-bullets.
They're not in the
No.
email.
They're on the agenda, they look like sub-bullets of guiding principles, and they're not.
Yeah, they're not. Sorry.
So what do we mean by determination of boundaries?
Why don't we go back and take about the discussion of guiding principles,
Okay.
starting from the email from December 12th.
Okay.
Yep, I think that would be a great idea.
Is that okay with you, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I'm 100% in favor of that. Thank you, Ms. Harrison.
Does somebody have a voice who can read them?
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Sure. The first is comply with the MBTA Communities Act. The second is to protect and preserve the town character. Do we mostly agree that the first one is really what we're here for?
Yes.
Yes.
Anyone else think anything else is more important?
Well, I'm kind of an outlier in discussion, because I think we're trying to create options that we present to the town. And I think we have to, I don't think, and you guys please correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think if any one of us believed that compliance would be not in the town's interest, that we would say, recommend that, right? You know, if we thought it was genuinely harmful to the town. I mean, we'd certainly have to, elucidate all the costs of noncompliance. But I think we were, that's why we were created, but we're created to make options to respond to the MBTA Communities Act. And that's really different than compliance, because I think if non-compliance is a serious option that we take seriously and investigate, then we have to say that.
I think I interpret it differently. I interpret it as we are going to come up with our best recommendations for how to change zoning so that we will comply with the act. It's up to the residents to make the determination at town meeting whether to accept whatever the planning board and select board end up presenting or not. But I agree with you, Sandy, that part of the presentation at that time will include the cons of noncompliance. And I think it's not our decision to determine whether we should adopt or not adopt. It's our decision to come up with the best possible options so that the town has a way to comply. So I guess I interpret number one a bit differently.
So perhaps,
So, can I jump in here and say, and furthermore, it's guiding principles, these are reasons for choosing or excluding areas for overlay districts.
Mhm.
So we're not gonna pick an overlay district that's gonna not comply.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
There.
That's an important clarification.
so
Thank you.
our goal is to present a plan that complies,
Right,
the best possible plan
right.
that complies.
Okay.
In selecting the districts.
Yes.
In selecting.
Shall we move on to number two,
Let's
Mr.
move to
Chair?
number two, yes. Time for number two, everybody.
Protect and preserve town character and commercial uses in the downtown. There are sub things there.
Yeah.
Preserve variety of design characteristics, preserve historic structures, including use of a demolition delay bylaw, protect and promote commercial uses, protect existing multifamily properties, keep building height below 4 stories within the half-mile radius.
I can't buy into assuming we're gonna use the demolition delay bylaw.
Since we don't have one.
Yeah.
Right, and I'm not convinced
And it's
it's
only,
of value, so I think that should be stricken.
I agree.
I agree too.
I mean, it presumes a conclusion. It's
Well-
one way to protect historic structures.
but in addition to not having it, even if we had a delay, it's only
A delay,
a few months,
Exactly.
and that's not going to protect.
no.
And preserve
I
the
don't,
town
and I don't think
character.
that's within our purview to determine whether or not there is a demolition delay.
Okay.
That's a
So-
separate item that would go before
So
town,
just preserve historic structures.
yes.
Okay, all right, good, done.
Okay,
On number C, I would like to say that although I am in favor of making sure that our commercial uses downtown continue, I question whether it's the role of this committee to protect or promote commercial uses. I'm in favor of them.
I would argue that in light of the recent changes in the regulations, we have an opportunity to require.
But we may not want to include any of that in our district. We may not want to include Beach Street in our district.
I'm not, okay,
We may just
Well,
want to
but
leave it as it
remember,
is.
Sarah, remember.
That's protecting it.
What Chris's qualification, that these are reasons for picking districts, and I would think protecting existing businesses would be one reason to pick or not pick a district.
And I would delete the word promote.
I agree.
Okay, I would agree with that.
and
Yes.
And then,
Protect commercial uses.
Yep,
Okay, done, that's easy.
Delete, promote, okay.
Yeah.
Protect existing
otherwise I think that's fine. I'm on board with 2 with those changes.
Okay.
protect existing multifamily properties. I mean,
I don't see that.
sure,
why not?
Wow.
Why, I
What
mean,
does it have to do with us?
Right.
I'm thinking of, there are multifamily properties that are not particularly historic, interesting, or necessarily the best use of the land. Do we need to protect those?
Okay, you wanna take it out?
Well, I
out.
don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a question, and I think we're trying to, if part of our goal is to achieve compliance, we certainly don't want to lose any multifamily properties that we have that might, if zone, if
It's
depending on
irrelevant.
the zoning would be included.
Sandy, it's irrelevant, because it depends on how we zone for it. It doesn't matter what's there.
Right,
I would go
think
with
what-
promote multifamily uses.
But that's inherent.
No,
Yes, it is.
That's
It is.
number one.
because part of, I mean, when you get down further in the list,
Mm-hmm.
there's a sense of wanting things to not change so much. And this is saying we have multifamily already and we're trying to keep it. This is what people are used to looking at as multifamily, but this is what people are used to having. And I don't think it's such a bad thing to say we want to try and protect those.
Well, maybe we should just say, protect things that people are used to looking at.
I don't think we
know.
want to say that.
Because the purpose of the zoning is creating multifamily.
Yeah, it is.
But to give an example, the multifamily housing on Desmond Avenue could be denser.
So
Could
maybe
be,
we
yes.
want
Could
to
be nicer.
say,
Couldn't be uglier.
maybe
No.
what, instead of making it sound like we're wanting to preserve existing structures, it's somehow say that we want to protect, so keep multifamily zoning where it currently exists.
But it doesn't.
Yes, it
Or
does.
maybe multifamily uses.
The whole general district is multifamily.
I'm gonna play Richard, I'm in his seat.
It's 3 units. By right, in an existing structure, that's multifamily.
So we don't want to change anything in the general district? because-
No, I'm just saying that we have existing zoning
But
that's
we have,
multifamily.
right, and I think one of our goals is to not do away with multifamily zoning that currently exists. We're trying to add
Okay.
to it.
Right.
So is
That's
there a
good.
way to, I'm not coming up with good
How
language.
about-
Protect existing multifamily zoning.
How about that?
Sure.
Sandy's not happy.
Or protect,
Well, let's
How about
leave it for
protecting-
now. I don't have
protecting
better
the-
language to suggest.
How about protect existing residential uses?
well, does
No, I
that
don't
include
think
single family or?
No.
Yeah,
That's too broad.
Well, or it could say multifamily uses, protect existing multifamily uses.
Well, that's
Because
zoning.
some of those uses would not be allowed under current zoning, Sarah.
What do you mean?
Well, I assume some of
Garage
those
property.
were,
My property wouldn't be allowed.
I mean, GAR, our favorite example of
Yeah.
GAR's.
Go ahead, tear down my building, I don't care.
You have to sell it first.
The reality is,
Yeah,
Sandy, we're
really.
not gonna be able to protect the stuff
Exactly.
that's non-conforming.
right.
We're not gonna be able to do that.
Well, we can avoid rezoning that, or putting the overlay district over things that we don't want to change.
Yes, that's right.
But
Thank
it's
you,
spot
Ann.
zoning.
Well, it depends
You've
on
seen the
how
Newton
big the
map.
area is. Depends on how big the area is.
I think there are existing multifamily that could be redeveloped and make the town better. And my interest in the downtown multifamily is their historic character.
I think people have different views of that, though. I mean, what specific properties you find attractive
Mhm.
are,
Right.
that's a different opinion than someone else. They would select maybe a property you don't find attractive, but they find that attractive, maybe
Yeah,
because
but
they
I'm on the
live
committee and
there.
they're not.
But others of us are also on the committee.
And we represent the entire town, so we also represent the people that live in those buildings.
Yeah,
So that's,
yeah.
I'm trying to think about,
Okay.
Instead of properties, I just say uses, because uses are somewhere between zoning and properties. And there's a notion there about,
A use is
I mean,
zoned.
people are resistant to too much change. I mean, you even said that yourself, Sarah. I mean, one of the points in this is about not changing the zoning, or changing it as little as possible. So I think all this does is, this point D, is recognize people's desire to not have too much change and protect the resources that we already have for families who use multifamily housing.
Then I think we need another bullet that says, limit the extent of zoning changes as
Yeah,
much as
there is one.
possible.
There is
think we
there
have
is such a
that.
bullet.
later
Yeah, it's in
on.
the list.
Okay.
Okay, so can we say protecting existing multifamily uses?
No.
Sure.
And I'm not sure that I agree with E either.
I don't either. I think that if it's possible to include Newport Park as an overlay district, that we would desperately need to allow 4-story structures in the back that can't be seen from the road.
Right, sort of the steps.
Same with Powder House Lane.
Okay, but Sarah, so you could say four,
The old cricket building.
I took that to mean 4 stories or less.
It says below 4 stories. That's less than 4 stories.
Should we change the language to 4 stories or less?
That's
That'd be a
fine.
good idea.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Yep, that's
Doesn't
fine.
mean we can't change it. That's just a principle.
It's a guiding principle.
Yeah, I mean, I think we want to be very clear in the guiding principles to respond to some of the alarm that's out there about, oh, you know, the.
Rantoul
we're gonna
Street.
turn to
Rantoul
Rantoul-
Street,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Okay,
Okay,
moving down to number 3. Has to be acceptable to the voters at the town meeting. I guess that goes without saying, in a way.
yep.
We will do our best, right?
All right. I think number 4 is a noble idea. I think I don't have a big problem with it. I'm not sure it's exactly why we exist in terms of this task force, but I believe in affordability, and I wish people would consider the subsidized housing inventory list more than they do.
Well-
So I'm not against it.
I just don't think that it's an overly viable principle. When
Well,
you're-
are we talking about lowercase a or uppercase a?
SHI is uppercase.
Yeah.
Right. Consider it. Okay. Well, I, in terms of affordability, some of it, I mean, when I see uppercase A, I think of the state's program and the lottery system and all of that.
Right.
And the fact that what's affordable, marketed as affordable here is, you know, hardly affordable for lots of families. So, I mean, I like the lowercase a because it says maybe we're going to be a little bit more realistic about.
So do we delete, consider the SHI?
That, I mean, that's really,
That's uppercase.
yeah, I know. I would say, well, I guess if you do lowercase, you may need the SHI also.
We
Right.
gotta consider the SHI, every unit that we build is gonna require another 10% of affordable housing in our
Yeah, but
SHIs.
the problem is the majority of these properties cannot support affordable. If you've got 3 units on a property, you can't have an affordable unit.
That's
not-
if it's
we
3
don't-
properties, that's right. But if it's 6 units or 10 units, you probably can.
Right, but,
Maybe-
And all this is saying that when we think about the, you know, how we're gonna make districts, we do consider the issue of
Right.
affordability seriously. And that's certainly something I would like to consider and I'd like to see considered.
I think we have some trapdoors here which are convenient and appropriate, where we say encourage,
right,
and then we say consider.
Yeah.
It doesn't say require and mandate. These are principles that we're going to encourage and consider, which is, in my view, perfectly fine.
And it is a topic that we have received feedback on, you know, in some of our forums, information sessions. It is a top of mind of some of the residents, so
Yes.
Yeah,
I think it's worth keeping in.
yeah. I would agree.
Okay, improve current land use, especially for underutilized sites. Promote the shoreline and waterfront as amenities. Make connections to the downtown.
I don't quite understand this one.
This sounds like it was written by a city planner. Not that I'm against city planning, mind you, but I think those are good ideas. I'm not sure the task force was put in place in order to achieve those, but once again, if these are guiding principles, they're not, hard and fast rules. But
I think it should be deleted.
I sort of
Well, but
agree with
wait a
that.
second. My thought on this, Sarah, I think because the whole MBTA, law, came about in such a kind of, it entered the picture in Manchester in a controversial, kind of emotion-filled way. And what we're trying to do is that a little bit, my sense is people are in a bit of a defensive crouch. And so if there's an opportunity by drawing a district in a certain way that might actually enhance things, certainly we want to do that, right? I mean, I think that's all this is saying.
I think promote the shoreline and waterfront as amenities is outside our box.
And I worry that people will read that as we want to put condos up all around
Right.
the harbor.
Yeah,
Oh, I see.
and make connections to downtown. I don't think that's necessary, and I don't know what it means by improve current land use, especially for underutilized sites. That's pretty broad.
And people have different opinions on what constitutes an underutilized site.
Right.
What, again, that's kind of subjective.
I think it's too nebulous.
Could I take a crack at something, because I don't want to give up on this idea that we're just in a defensive crouch, but that we might, Lord knows, maybe we won't, but if we have an opportunity in choosing a district and constructing the zoning for it, where it might actually enhance the situation.
Well, why don't we just say protect the
something-
shoreline and waterfront as amenities? Leave it at that.
Protect instead of promote.
Protect the shoreline and waterfront as amenities and get rid of the other stuff.
Well, hold on. I think that's pretty close. Promote the shoreline and waterfront as amenities.
Protect
Yeah,
is
making
completely
connections,
different from
but-
promote.
I would like to add I think to that, protect the shoreline and waterfront as amenities for all citizens.
That's fine,
Mhm.
for all, yep. Get rid of the other
okay.
pieces.
Well, the other
Yeah.
thing we could do is just say protect the shoreline and waterfront for all. Do we need the as amenities?
Right, I don't think we need it.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah, that's fine.
well, but there's a notion, Sue, with the idea of amenities that, you know, I mean, to some degree, it's what the MIT students said to us about, my God, you live in this gorgeous place and there's the harbor and there's a, you know, and how, you know, how can we, when we're thinking about districts, connect that idea, which I think is, it's a lot of the reason people live in town, because it's a really beautiful place to live because of the shore. I mean, so they are amenities. So I don't know, I would leave amenities in. Mostly I agree with you all the time, Sue, but on that one, I would leave it in.
Usually I agree with you too. I don't feel that strongly. I just feel like it makes it a little,
Fluffy.
Yeah.
I don't know about fluffy, but
It makes
whatever.
it sound like we're bordering on a condo project. We have to have amenities or something, you know.
or that it's like a
Gardner,
a
you got your
brochure
developer
statement,
hat on.
Right.
you know?
Right.
Okay, I see the point. So it'll say, protect the shoreline and waterfront for all citizens.
Yes,
Yep.
How's that?
that seems good.
And get rid of the
How
other.
about resources? As resources for all citizens.
That's good.
As resources, okay.
Wait, say that again, Chris?
Protect the shoreline and waterfront as resources for all.
I don't like that.
I could live with it.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it.
And Gar, what do you guys think?
As resources, I mean, fine. I mean,
Protect the
whatever.
shoreline, I'm
Whatever.
fine, whatever it's for.
Yeah,
Resources.
clamming.
Okay, so it'll say, protect the shoreline and waterfront as resources for all citizens.
Sure.
And get rid of the other two phrases.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay, minimize impacts on open space, water resource areas, and coastal areas threatened by flooding and sea level rise. Once again, I think this is a noble intention. I don't believe that there's anything in legislation that suggests that the towns need to do this as part of the MBTA
But
communities.
we can't
It's-
build on protected open space.
Anyway,
but we're,
That's, and I don't think anybody's gonna wanna build on something that's likely to flood in the next 30 years.
no.
right. But when we're selecting districts, is this a principle we want to keep in mind?
Well, if we select a district that includes an area threatened by flooding and sea level rise, I think we haven't done a very good job.
We can leave, I'm happy enough leaving this in. I don't,
Yeah.
I think it's something that people would like to see us
Okay.
say.
All right,
Okay.
okay,
And I think we may think, well, that's a no-brainer, why do I have to write it down?
Right.
But
right.
But it's important for people to
Yeah.
know we're thinking of that.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
All right, leave
Yeah,
that where
I
it is. 7,
Okay,
minimize
7.
potential impact on town neighborhoods and residents. I think number 2 addresses this to some extent. Then the bullets.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of okay with this one, except I wouldn't say large scale development, because we're not really, I would say larger scale, or, you
Yeah.
know, so that,
I would just say minimize large-scale projects in existing residential neighborhoods and get rid of the first clause.
But we may want to have a fairly large-scale development in, the LCD.
Yeah.
Right, but that's not a residential neighborhood. That's not an
No,
existing
this is
residential
target
neighborhood.
target large-scale development to appropriate sites. And I think,
And I would say larger.
Well, then it
Like
says large-scale
larger.
projects in existing residential neighborhoods.
that's a second clause, it's there's an
Minimize.
and.
Okay,
So I don't think we want to adopt a principle that will keep us from building something in the LCD.
okay.
Yeah, but
Why don't we
I don't
How about we
think
say,
we want to push for large-scale developments.
no, let's say target development to appropriate sites and minimize large-scale projects in existing residential neighborhoods.
Good.
Okay, that's good.
Wait, what was that?
Get rid of the large scale in the first clause.
Okay,
Say
thank
target development to appropriate sites
Yes, thank
and
you.
minimize large-scale projects in existing residential
Got
neighborhoods.
it, got it, got it.
Then we're not pushing
makes
large-scale
sense.
stuff.
And
Yes.
I'm being a pain in the neck, but can we say larger as opposed to large?
We're getting rid of large.
No, the second large.
Minimize large.
Minimize larger scale
No,
project.
I don't like that.
I don't want people to think we're gonna build a 100-unit place. 100-unit building.
Minimize the size of projects in existing residential neighborhoods?
That's fine.
Yep,
Good.
yep, great.
Okay. Minimize the total of new additional units.
Yes.
That seems
That doesn't,
counter to what we're supposed to be doing here.
No,
That
I
says that
think-
you redevelop already developed areas.
Fair enough?
yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
I
that-
think it says we also avoid the Newton, I think it was, transgression, where they basically wound up, their initial proposal was to do twice the number of units that the MBTA zoning required.
How about we change it to say retain existing units to minimize
That's,
new additional units?
that's not quite the same thing.
I know it isn't.
And I don't think it's what,
Okay,
I would have to have more explanation of why you think that's the way to do it. I think, for example, Newport Park, we don't want to protect that. We want to redevelop it.
right.
Oh,
We
yeah.
want additional units.
We
at
want-
Newport Park.
Right.
But
We're
by
gonna
putting
need
the
to tear
additional
down existing.
But by putting Newport Park in there, we're starting with a significant number of units. We're going to replace it with more units, but the difference is that we've already got 30 or 40, and now we're going to put in 60. The increase is
Right.
30.
Okay.
Right. So it's incremental units that you're
Yeah. Which is the total of new additional units.
yeah. I'm fine with that language, actually.
Okay, shall we go with that? Minimize the total of new additional units. Consider appropriate sites beyond the half-mile radius. I believe we're doing that.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
that one's okay.
Unless we can
Yeah.
find that the existing zoning in the
Is
general
enough.
district is enough.
But we're just considering.
Right, exactly.
That sends
Consent.
the message
Right.
that we are not refusing to look elsewhere.
Right.
Exactly.
Mhm.
We're
And
not
then
trying to jam it all in
Exactly.
half.
Right. And then number D, consider infrastructure limits. I think that's fine.
Yep.
We certainly can consider infrastructure limits.
So can you
Okay.
go back to C? What is C again?
C is
Yeah,
consider
so-
appropriate sites beyond the half-mile radius,
Okay,
which
great.
I think the zoning subcommittee is already doing. I
Yep.
assume.
We're considering.
Consider.
And Emily,
Please
yeah,
consider.
she's considering, yep.
Okay. And we've already done D, about infrastructure. Now we're up to 8. Promote residential use above first floor commercial uses.
I would like to change promote to consider.
I like that.
Good.
Since we haven't determined what we're doing
Right.
with that area yet.
Yep. And number 9, we talked about before, new regulations that are least disruptive to existing zoning bylaws.
Right.
So we've got that all taken care of now.
Piece of cake.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, you did a great job, Chris, synthesizing.
Chris did a
those
great job, I
3 points.
agree.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So should we post this on the website?
Sure.
All right. And I'll send it to Emily.
Why to Emily? Oh,
She's
separate from posting on the website. Got it. I thought you were sending it to Emily to post on the website.
That'd be nice if she'd take that job on, but
I can walk and chew gum at the same time.
okay, Mr. Chair.
Okay, these last 2 paragraphs, I don't even think we need to talk about. I think they're, unless you want to. Note that the number of specified parking spaces per unit can be a factor, though in most cases the model calculates that parking can be accommodated in the lot coverage requirement. That's simply a function of what the model says. Then the model assumes that the footprint of an average residential unit is 1,000 square feet. A lot which it could accommodate a 1,000 square foot footprint with a 3-story height limit would generate a capacity of 3 units. Very good multiplication there. If the lot coverage requirement was 40%, the 1,000 square foot footprint would need a lot size of 2,500 square feet. Once again, the current minimum lot size in the G district is 6,000 square feet, which would be enough for 6 vehicles, requiring 1,800 square feet, using a total of 2,800 square feet of less than half the lot. I think those all interesting.
Oh, or less. That's a typo. Or less than half the lot.
Of less than half the lot, yes.
So we skipped the variables to consider.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, you did.
Oh,
I think
okay.
this is just information, right?
yeah. Isn't that basically
Just telling
stuff-
us how the model works.
Isn't that just the stuff out of the model?
Right.
I have to, just on a sidebar here for everybody, assuming residential units are 1,000 square feet is, in my view, incorrect. There was just a 170 unit building in Brookline that's been up there for 40 years. The average unit size is about 680 square feet. Quite a bit less than 1,000. Now, if you gross it up for the corridors, the elevator shafts, and so on and so forth, maybe the average unit requires a little bit more than that 680. Maybe it's more like 780.
She said, what, the 1,000 feet is in the model, and it
Okay.
includes the circulation.
All right,
So it includes the hallways and includes the
Yeah, yeah.
stairways.
it's still generous.
So
in
a
my
joke-
view.
Well, yeah, but it's
the
the model and
It's the
we're
model.
going to get
We're
judged
not
on
going to
it.
change the model at this
No.
point.
We're not.
Okay, all right, got it.
But it's,
It's not as bad as it sounds because it includes the circulation
Yeah,
areas.
yeah.
but it is something if at the end of the day, we have, in order for us to comply, we need to massage the model. You know, it's something for us to at least put forth. I mean, it might not be accepted, but it's some,
It's not, I don't think it's worth the fight.
okay.
1,000 square feet is, I mean, you're talking a footprint of 1,000 square feet to get a 3-unit, 3,000 square foot building on a very small lot. So I think that's something attainable.
Okay,
I agree that but you don't have to have each unit be 1,000 square feet.
Right,
You
right.
could-
It's an average, right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, you could have a larger one and smaller ones.
And when people say it's impossible to develop affordable units, a lot of times the units they're building are larger than they should be.
Right,
That affordable
Yeah.
units can easily be 600 to 800 square foot.
but under the state requirements, your affordable units to be included on the SHI have to be the same size as the market rate
units,
right.
I agree.
in a development.
We have a whole bunch of market units that are the same size as our affordable
Yeah,
units.
right.
Everybody's happy.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Okay,
All right,
Mr. Chair.
great work. Okay, we've done the guiding principles, and that will be posted to the website.
The guiding principles where we stop at number 9 and don't continue into variables to consider.
right.
Yep,
I would say.
yes, because that was just for our information about how the model looks at different
Okay.
elements, different features of a property.
I just don't need everybody in town sending us messages saying 1,000 square feet is ridiculous.
Is too big.
I don't care whether it's too big or too small.
Okay.
I just don't want to hear about it, because we don't get to change that one.
Right.
No, we
right.
can't change that.
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
So
All right.
all we're posting, just to be clear, is points 1 through 9 guiding principles only.
Correct.
In the selection of the overlay districts, yes.
Yes, principles to select the overlay district, right.
Okay. Moving now to the initial review of INUS analysis. Since
Yeah.
at least I have not received.
Could
We
I ask-
skipped A, B, and C.
Oh, okay. Do you want to do those?
Determination of boundaries?
Oh, wait, I don't think we have to do them. I think we've done it.
Okay,
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's
Okay.
done.
Thank you.
do we need a discussion on parking?
If you'd like.
I mean, I think that's gonna be, I would expect, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gar, I would expect that that would be a topic for the meeting with DIP. I
No.
haven't read all the parking studies yet.
No,
so
this
I'm
is
just
on-site
not
parking,
prepared.
this isn't DIP. This is how many parking spots are we gonna require per unit?
Hmm.
Are we gonna use what the town currently uses at 1.5? Or are we gonna drop it down to 1?
And that's something we should be considering, but I feel like it's premature to make
Okay.
that decision right now.
Okay. I think it's not gonna make a difference. Because we have enough, because they allow the parking in the setbacks, and because of our coverage requirements, the buildings are only 40% of the lot, you've got enough lot so that the parking won't be a constraint.
That we have enough parking space for 1.5 units per.
We have more than that.
1.5 parking spaces per unit.
Yeah, we have more than that, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
I think we
and
certainly can cover the 1.5. I mean,
Okay.
you need 5 for 3 units,
Okay.
which is 1,500 square feet.
All right.
Which if you're talking a 3,000 square foot lot, which is half of our size, and you're using less than 1,500 square feet for the building, then you have more than 1,500 square foot left for parking.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
I don't see that it's a big issue.
I think parking tends to be a big issue with merchants, and I think it depends too on a macro view of the town and the potential changes to zoning, and I just don't think we're in a position where we understand any of that yet.
Okay. Great. So can we go down to the review from Innes Associates analysis? I can't tell you that I have reviewed
Okay, I think that would be this.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
would
now-
rather wait till we meet with her. I find this very confusing
Well,
and not very useful.
okay,
I can say a little bit about this.
good.
That'd be great.
And I was hoping Richard would be here because he understands it a lot better than I do. But essentially what
No,
she's doing is
nothing.
taking our existing zoning regulations and applying the model to these various areas. So when she comes up with a capacity of 0, it's because in most cases it's a 2-family allowed by right, but nothing else.
Mhm.
And to be multifamily, it has to be at least 3, and so it's knocked out. But I do think that it's worth waiting till Emily comes to spend more time on this.
Yeah. It's puzzling. It's a bit puzzling.
Um, Okay. It would be nice to find,
She did an additional analysis for us this morning, which I will send out to everybody, which shows what happens if we modify the zoning a little bit and allow 3 families and things. It does have an impact, it makes things a lot better.
Wait, can you
Well,
repeat what you just said, Chris? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, my voice is failing. So she did a separate analysis of those different districts and adjusted the zoning a little bit to see what would happen. And I can show that to everybody. I'll send that around to everyone. I was hoping Richard could do that.
I mean, you certainly look at this and the general district has more than the required number.
Right.
yeah, but that's assuming that you put the whole general district
right,
in,
right.
and I don't want to do that.
Well,
The other thing that's intriguing is on the larger scale map, she's got some sections to be considered over in the Raymond Street area, which I'm not sure where that came from.
I don't see Raymond Street.
You don't?
I don't have a map. How's that?
I don't see it.
But-
Oh, I see, way over there. Got
Yeah, way
it.
over there.
Okay, I got it.
That's in Magnolia? Or
No, it's in
Right.
Manchester.
near Magnolia?
Yeah.
Yep.
But in addition to being flood prone, there's a barrier beach that's not necessarily going to last forever. The whole area is flood prone. I don't know why she's spending any time looking at that.
Right, I agree.
I think we discussed Surf Village and what's going on over there, and that's why she put it in.
Okay. And the other is, I'm not sure what she lists as A on that.
That's the one in the LCD that we identified, but I think what we have to remember is if you have too much capacity in the LCD, you have to increase your capacity within the half mile. So we don't want to go any larger in the LCD than the 20 acres we need, if we need that amount. With the 15 units per acre, because if we have a capacity of 3,900 in the LCD, then we have to have that times 40% in the half mile radius.
Right.
So that's the thing, and when I did calculations, it was very difficult to increase the capacity outside of the half mile radius and still get the required density within the half mile. It was very difficult. But there wasn't much room for play.
The other is that she's got,
Could I ask for some clarity? What I have is a memorandum from Jimmy Roca dated January 3rd.
I don't have
It
that.
has a list of, huh?
I don't have that.
And does that come with a map? Is that what
No,
we're talking
no.
about?
Yeah, it's the cover memo for the map.
this
It's a
is,
cover memo with a map.
Well, it wasn't
map.
sent to us.
So I'm gonna send all those things, I'm gonna send this all out to everybody, so everybody gets it.
Oh, wait a minute, here it is. Yes, I'm sorry.
this is, how far into this? No, that's the
I just don't think
market
we should discuss it to anything till we meet with Emily, because we're just gonna waste our time.
Yep,
Yeah, I think you're right.
But if we're sending some feedback to her, maybe we could say that we think spending any time on the area on Raymond Street.
I also don't understand why we cut back on the area in the Elm Street area. We were talking a bigger area.
Yep.
I don't understand why that was cut back,
Or divided in half.
because we were just excluding the ones along Central Street, and there's more properties than that excluded.
And the train station isn't in the right place.
Right, that's the state map. They haven't figured it out.
Okay.
yeah, I think we're stuck with it. Based on what.
But the Elm Street, we had included more properties.
Uh-huh.
Yep,
And we had included it all the way down to Newport Park, so that we had the 15 acres
yep,
in that one section.
Because she wanted to reflect that was Zone A.
Oh, okay, yeah, she separated because of the different,
Ah,
she was doing it based on current zoning, right, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
May I ask a question? Why is the parking lot of Harbor Point not included?
At with the meeting with her, we kind of took it off the table.
Why?
she
We decided it was too complicated.
she advised that it was more trouble than it was worth.
Because of the condo form of ownership?
No,
Because of the floodplain?
No,
Because, is there a reason?
it was a combination of the current state of affairs there. And I can't remember.
It's a large single parcel that could be very, very dense. And by excluding it and including only things that are little, we end up with smaller buildings.
we don't get a big development downtown.
Wow. Seems to me like we're
Visited it with her.
doing a little hands-on power play here, in my feeling, because if I were the state, or if I were the guy running the law, I'd say, why didn't you put that?
They don't care.
Well,
As long as we comply, they don't care which lots we select. They're not gonna be looking at the stuff we exclude, they're gonna be looking at the stuff we include and determine whether we comply.
Right. They're not going to look to see whether it was the best possible
Right,
combination of areas in their view. They're just gonna run their model and apply their factors.
and you look at what some of the other towns have done, and it's
well,
just along main streets.
If we look at our, guiding principles, one of the guiding principles is to make the best use of the land areas that we have. That's a
And
area that cries out for more intense development.
but we've also got a principle that we don't want to have large developments in residential areas. And downtown is a residential area.
And you also have, the other part was because it was partly commercial. And if you wanted to protect the commercial, it would make it very complicated. That was one of the complicating
right.
factors.
But that rule has changed slightly recently.
Oh,
yeah,
I think Newton is going to get away with requiring commercial on the first floor.
you know, we've got a whole bunch of shopping malls all over the country that are lying fallow right now and are being foreclosed on by their mortgagees. And the reason that this is happening is the developers didn't have the insight to build residential on top of the Macy's or on
Right.
top of the
Mhm.
Almies or whatever it was
But-
that was there.
but-
And here we have a great example of a lack of profound understanding. Not that I can, you know, hold myself up as a you know, profound thinker on this, but it cries out for responsible, maybe 2 and 3 story residential in there with parking underneath that would allow us to have, you know, what we should be having.
Okay.
I
The challenge,
disagree with that.
the challenge
decision.
was is if we protected those commercial areas, we could only include, it couldn't be included as a district. And we could only offset 25% of the
25%.
housing.
Right.
So we can't, so it's not a district. It can't be included as a district, I think is where we came out. If we want to
Right,
protect the
but-
commercial.
I did talk to Emily a little bit about it afterwards, and she was gonna investigate because my understanding, from what I've read is that it's 25% of the total requirement, the total, so 25% of the 585, you could have that many units in the mixed use and have those units count, although the district itself you'd still have to come up with the acres.
The mixed use district doesn't count
It doesn't count.
towards the acreage.
District does not count as an MBTA district, but the units in it up to 25% of 585 would count
Yeah, but
against the total
it's
units.
still not
in
an
that.
MBTA communities district if you protect the
Right, but
commercial.
that doesn't matter. What it does, Sarah, is it allows the other districts to be less dense, if that's how it works. And there's some confusion about how.
Right, I get that, but do you want that density in that location?
Okay. Yes. Other questions?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, I'm sorry, I don't understand your question, Sarah.
Do you want a high rise
It's not a
at Harbor Point?
Why would
You
there
want it
be a
to be
high rise?
all to be 3 stories?
If it's
I
3
mean, it's
stories, is
already
that a high
3
rise?
story. That's not a high rise. We already went through our guiding principles of 4 stories or less. I just wanted to mention, Gar, I don't know if you're allowing public comment, but right now, but Sarah's had her hand up for a while.
Okay.
That's up, it appears as the last point on the agenda.
Okay.
But it's up to you, Gar, because you're running the meeting.
Well, I think we ought to finish this discussion and then take public comment.
Okay.
Yeah, it's at the end, we get more things.
So can we just have this discussion with Emily next week? about
Yeah.
the-
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep,
Yeah,
I think that's the same degree.
And please, I don't have the map, Chris.
well, that was distributed today. Hard copies
Ah.
were.
By Tiffany.
Yeah, well, I'm in Connecticut, so I didn't get it.
Well, there'll be a town hall.
Yeah, okay, good.
Okay, so, are there other, items,
We have reports from the outreach subcommittee.
reports from the outreach subcommittee?
Okay. Hot off the meeting, which was an hour ago. The next thing is our density walk, which is happening this Saturday. We would like to have everyone from the task force come if they would like. It'd be great to have as many people as possible. It's gonna be cold. We're meeting outside of, we're meeting on the town common. We're going to take a walk, over to Pine, over to Sandy and Chris,
Uh,
can you
Elm
help me?
Street.
Yeah, Elm, okay.
And
Up to,
Powderhouse Hill.
yep, and keep going.
Yeah,
Putting one-
basically
then from
goes
there, we're
from
going
Pine
down
down to the downtown.
to the downtown and then end up on Summer Street.
Right,
Yeah,
so
Is there a script that goes with this?
there will be, and stops, and,
So that sort of thing should be presented to the whole task force instead of the outreach committee just doing stuff on their own. Everything should be coming back to the task force if it's a subcommittee before it goes out to the public.
well,
So you-
it's going to be fairly informal. We're just going to, we have selected certain buildings as an example of what the density currently is in that building. That was the objective.
Right, and I suggest that you send that all out to the task force before the density walk.
And what do we do with it?
You know what's gonna be discussed, so if people ask you questions, you know what's going on.
Okay.
People
I'll
are
send
gonna
it
be
to
spread
everybody
out.
tonight.
well, there's
Sarah.
a handout.
I'll send it out to everybody.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I mean, my concern is there's a subcommittee that's acting on behalf of the task force and isn't bringing the items back to the task force before you're acting on behalf of the task force. And that's not the way it should work.
Well, the density walk was talked about previously at a task force meeting, but the handout didn't exist until, I don't know, day before yesterday.
I'm just talking about the format of the
general,
way
I
things
think
should be
you're right about
working,
the-
Sandy.
Yeah, I think you're right about the process. It's
Yeah.
just how things unfolded
Right.
because of the holiday.
Yeah,
I mean, one thing is, Chris and Gar review everything, but
they're not the task force. I'm sorry.
they are the chairs.
You're but chairs don't have that authority. You're excluding all the other members of the task force in what you're doing. But you're acting on behalf of the task force. And that's not the process that should be followed.
So what could we do to change that? What would you like to see us do?
Well, you're meeting with various groups. What's your spiel? I mean, the task force should be approving that stuff.
Every time we have an event?
Yes. If you're gonna discuss different things, or you have one discussion thing that you give to all of the little meetings and you get that approved by the task force first.
Well, I think what's happened so far, I think what you're saying is right for the discussion of options, but what's happened so far pretty much has been the meeting you went to in front of town hall has been the basic story. I mean, it's basically getting the story of MBTA and what it means and all of that.
But
out
I
there.
wasn't at that meeting.
Oh, you didn't go to the,
No, I wasn't available.
ah,
I was out of town. And so then there've been meetings with what, the Manchester Club or somebody? Seniors,
Yes, Council on Aging.
Council on
yes,
Aging.
Yes.
And so all I'm saying, if there's a standard discussion points,
There is.
then that should come before the full task force for approval.
So that has been based on the FAQs that the entire task force did.
It's on the website.
I don't care. I'm talking process.
Right,
If you're reading the FAQs line by line, that's okay. But you're not doing
No.
that, I'm
No.
assuming.
that's true.
And therefore, you should have talking points that come before the task force for approval. Otherwise, you're speaking on behalf of the task force, and perhaps some of the things you're saying are not supported by the whole task force. I don't know.
It just has to be supported by a majority.
Right, but
Okay.
well, Sarah, I mean, I understand what you're saying about process, and I basically agree. But there's a thing that's I think very important about the communications that cuts to some degree against what you're saying. Sure, I mean, I think the communications group can give you a list of the talking points. I mean, that it's basically a simple statement about the FAQs. But the thing that, to give you a speech, where it cuts against the need to be informal and encourage dialogue and go back and forth. And so it's not like a zoning regulation. It's like a simple communication between people. And if you, what you want is a set of talking points, that's pretty easy to put together. And there is a handout for the event on Saturday. So, you know, you're certainly welcome to.
Yeah,
look
there
at
should
that.
be talking points, and you shouldn't go outside the talking points if you're meeting with people, if the
I
task
don't
force
think we-
hasn't
I don't think
supported
we
it.
have-
Well, but if people ask you questions, you need to respond, and you need to be responsive to people.
But you have to be careful.
Oh, of course, but you have to not be AI,
Well,
right?
I don't know. I don't know what type of questions people are asking.
We get very few questions.
Yeah.
And very few incisive,
Right.
pressing
Right, yeah.
questions here.
Well, we got quite a few at the first forum that was outside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you did.
But it was all,
Generic stuff.
it was generic, and responses were based on the FAQs.
Right.
They did not go outside.
Right.
They did not go outside of that, and I think we are being quite careful to be facts, just the facts, not be subjective in our
Because, I mean,
responses.
otherwise, then the outreach committee should be part of the whole task force and not a subcommittee. You know, if you want to get input from all members of the task force, that's what I'm reacting to.
Okay?
So, well, I'm just trying to figure out how to go forward. I mean, we could spend part of our task force meeting with everyone present going over what we go over in our meetings, but it will make these meetings much more lengthy.
But it's just that I think it's important that everyone is on the same page.
I understand, I do,
Because there's a lot of rabbit holes.
yes, there are.
So on Monday, get ready for this. We're meeting with the Downtown Improvement Projects Committee. And they're going to say, what is the task force doing? And when are you going to present a plan to the town? Let's just say they say that.
And how are you gonna
Our
respond?
answer is, the task force is supposed to come up with alternatives and a proposal that will allow the town of Manchester to comply with the MBTA zoning, but also is acceptable to a requisite number of voters in town who have to approve it. The task force has no power, and I have said this in so many words, to architect any districts or dictate any changes to zoning. That is not what the task force is supposed to do. The task force makes a proposal, and the town voters,
Probably it goes
No,
through the.
it's the
or
planning
I'm
board.
sorry, it goes to the planning
The
board.
planning board is
there
gonna come up with the
absolutely-
final,
Yeah.
Yes.
there's
the
not gonna
planning
be
board.
options presented to the town for voting.
No,
There will be a
I quite
zoning
agree, I
change.
quite agree. So,
Hopefully, we get that input before we get to that.
I sure hope we will, I sure hope we will. So what we're saying is, the task force is not in the business of dictating
Right.
zoning to anybody. The task force will make a proposal to the planning board. The planning board presumably goes to some extent through the selectmen, and then it gets on the town warrant. And then the voters make the decisions. It's incumbent on the task force to, and the planning board, if you will, to explain what the thinking is of why this particular, warrant article is placed in front of the voters, what we're trying to do. But the task force is not in a power position here.
We have just adopted a set of guiding principles.
Right.
Those would be excellent things to talk about.
Yes.
Mhm,
Mhm.
mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
My concern is when people get into talking about districts and possible districts.
Is my house going
And
to
that's
be
a
rezoned?
minefield.
No,
Oh,
when
yes,
we
it is
don't,
minefield.
And we don't answer those
thus
questions.
far, we have not engaged in those discussions.
The question is, should, every time we have a meeting, such as we're gonna have on Monday, should we ask the task force to come and review what our discussion, and by the way, the task force is invited to the meeting on Monday with the DIP. So, you know,
But I would
In
think that
some
every,
ways, Sarah, it's like the zoning options subgroup, where everybody from the task force was invited, but people proceeded to develop options.
yes, but everything came back to the task force and there was no communication with the public. That's where I'm drawing the line.
and when you say it came back to the task force, that's what we're seeing today.
All the zoning stuff we did in that subcommittee all came back here.
It did. We
Yeah,
saw
all the work
all,
w-
we saw all
Not
the
every,
plans that
not
you
every option.
were putting forth.
All the work that we did on the districts came back.
I know you did a lot of
And
work.
then, we gave them all to Emily.
Yeah, and she's done this.
She's been working on it, yeah.
So this is
It was the,
No,
this.
that,
no.
No,
no, okay.
Okay.
There were maps,
So,
That's-
All the
current
maps that we
zoning,
marked
yeah.
up at the meeting with Emily. Those started with the districts that we had selected.
okay,
And then there were changes made in that meeting.
okay. So, it's incumbent on the members of the task force to look at this and to decide whether they're satisfied with it, obviously.
Right. And we're still working with Emily on it. Hopefully she's gonna shed some light on things.
I think, you just need to see the handout for Saturday. And maybe if you would like, I'm sure we can prepare a list of discussion points that are typically used at this point. And then, I think you're correct about once we begin to talk about options, then the discussion, this is all just explaining what the situation is. Once options get out there, it has to be a much tighter set of rules about communication.
so in addition to the dip on Monday,
who is going to the dip? Is it that subcommittee?
The task force.
What task force?
we
haven't been invited.
We are inviting you. Yes.
Okay.
Gar just said,
Do we have an agenda? Is this a meeting? Do we have,
the
Yes,
agenda
there's
was
an
just,
agenda. It's posted.
it's posted for,
But how are we supposed to know it's posted if we don't know there's a
we're
meeting?
telling you now.
I mean,
okay. One of the things, some of us get a little bit of meeting fatigue. And it might be possible for the liaison, for the representatives from individual committees to go back to their committees and talk about what we're doing and come back to us with the suggestions without having all 9 of us traipse everywhere.
Right.
And
and to come back with the results of the meetings.
Yeah, well, that's what this
What
part of this
questions
meeting
were
is about.
asked, what was dealt
Well,
with.
we actually
Because-
take minutes at these meetings.
So when you did this council on aging, there were minutes?
I don't know whether there were minutes of that.
Because these aren't official meetings. Council on aging wasn't an official meeting,
Okay.
right? If one or two people go, it's not an official meeting.
Okay,
No, they're forums, Sarah.
Yeah,
They're forums.
right.
so
And
this
there's
is,
no
the
way to
communication
record.
subcommittee is charged with trying to get this issue out into the public.
Right,
We
but,
don't tell the town what's going on, and we just walk into a town meeting next April and say, here's a vote, let's vote. Everybody in favor or against it? I mean, we're gonna have it, it's gonna blow up in our faces.
right, and I'm not questioning that, I'm just questioning the process.
Okay,
Because you're acting on behalf of the task force, and in order to do that, the whole task force needs to understand what's being done and vote on it.
Well, Sarah, pretty much at every meeting of the task force, there's been a report from the outreach subcommittee.
There has
Which is
been
in fact what we're doing right now.
discussion about your talking points at any of the meetings. There's just a discussion about the events,
The schedule.
the schedule. No discussion about what you're talking about. There's been no discussion about what you're talking about at the density walk. All we know is that a density walk is occurring.
Well, there may
We
not
know
have
nothing, no
been
more.
discussion, but there are FAQs on the website. Those are the things we talk about,
That's not my point, Gar.
all right?
The point is, you are discussing with the public, and you're not bringing to the task force what you're discussing.
Yes, that's what the FAQs are, Sarah.
You've never said before tonight that those are your discussion points for the meetings.
We hand those out.
You've never said that at a meeting of the full task force, which is the process.
I disagree with you.
Can I jump in here? I think I'm gonna take a little bit of a hit for this because I probably am not communicating well enough with all the members of the task force about what's going on. And I'm gonna have to do a better job of letting everybody know what's happening. Sarah, I'm gonna send out the density walk plan for you tomorrow or
Fine.
tonight. It's nothing, it's just a map of where we're going and what the densities of these various properties are. It's all factual stuff. It's not any of substantive things.
I'm not questioning what you're doing, Chris. I'm questioning the process.
So we've got a lot on our plates, and and we're gonna be talking about this in a minute as well. It's very hard to keep all of this stuff coordinated when we have this huge responsibility to put this thing together in 6 months.
Yeah, but you can't be doing it in subcommittees. You've got to be doing it with the whole task force.
Well, then we're gonna have a schedule a meeting of the task force every week. If you wanna do that, we can try it. I think the town clerk is gonna get pretty upset, but if that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do.
Tiffany's been trying to say something, and I'd be interested to hear what she has to say.
Tiffany?
Buddy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Hi. I just wanted to briefly remind everybody that in September, when we adopted, the whole task force adopted the communication plan, we decided to split it into 3 phases. And this fall, from September until this point, we've been conducting phase 1. And that was identifying and defining and educating the public about what the Chapter 40A, 3A law is, how it applies to Manchester, what guidelines is the state requiring. So really very fact-based, and that's what all of our public outreach has been so far, because that's what we have to go on. So that's what we have right now up until this point. And
And that
we created the FAQ. Yeah, and that's
plan
where the
was reviewed and
FAQ comes in.
discussed and approved by the whole task force.
Right, so that's what we've been, that's the events that we've been conducting so far. So we have a presentation where we explain the law, we go through the FAQ, we have boards that we created, and we bring that before different groups, And then we literally engage with the public, and it's an informal question and answer. And it's questions, people have questions about what this law is. And we're just trying to bring everybody onto the same page as far as what this is all about and what's required of each community, and specifically Manchester. So I just wanted to explain that, where we're at right now. Phase 2 will be different when we have options. Yes, I think our strategy will need to be a little bit different, and definitely more bringing in the whole task force, to define our talking points and the messaging, the exact messaging that we want to bring to the public will be really important at that point. And so I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
It's a helpful reminder. Thank you.
Now, I also hear there's a design subcommittee. Does anybody know anything about that?
Yes, I can tell you about that. Richard Smith is organizing a group of local architects to help him put together a set of design standards or guidelines that we could consider further down the road as part of the zoning changes. So it'd be part of the site plan review process.
So why is it being posted as meetings if it's just Richard doing it?
Well, because we want to make sure that we're doing it as publicly and openly as we can.
But it's not a meeting if it's one member.
Well, point taken. Maybe he doesn't have to post them. I don't know. I'll ask Greg about it.
Chris, do you want to talk about the other upcoming events?
Remind me what they are.
So we have the dip,
Yeah, we have the dip.
and then
We have, we're talking about the possibility in February of a general zoning 101, I don't know what to call it, tutorial. So residents can come and learn about the district they're living in and what makes up a zoning district and what the uses are and what the setback requirements are and so on and so forth. And then we can start talking about what new zoning regulations would comply with the MBTA mandate. And in fact, we were hoping, Sarah, that you might help make that presentation about zoning districts.
It was Gail's idea. She said you're very good at explaining the current zoning
I do know
in
the
each
zoning.
district.
I do know the zoning.
And most
And mostly people don't
residents
know
don't.
that.
Right.
They have no idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, in addition, we have talked about on January 18th, getting together with local business leaders, once again, to have a information session about the MBTA zoning law,
The facts of the law.
the facts of the law.
And that's January 18th
18th,
at,
it's a Thursday.
We're
We're
working
thinking
during the
mid-morning.
day, but we're working on a time because also a venue because we're
We have so many meetings, the town hall is getting
town hall's
overburdened
getting
with our
angry at all the
meetings.
meetings. So working on that.
Bravo has a room.
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh, didn't know that.
Yeah,
How big?
not maybe 2/3 of this.
Sounds good.
That's where the Cape Ann Chamber sometimes meets.
Great.
And if they would let you use it, or we could break the lock at the community center, but I think we say that.
Don't want to do that.
Let's not get into that one.
No.
If you're getting together business people,
Problem I do.
Bravo might do it.
The The nature of these communications are that we talk about what the law requires.
How are you going to send out your invitations?
That's Tiffany.
Okay.
You know, she's the director of communications for the town, so.
Okay.
She's gonna contact the chamber, she's got a list of things she's gonna do.
Okay.
Yeah, and part of what we're doing is not just talking, but hopefully a lot of listening.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hearing what people have heard about the law, what their concerns are, and there's a lot of misinformation out
Well,
there.
there's certainly more percolating now that some towns have done
Yes.
Yeah.
submissions.
Yes,
It is only gonna get
right.
worse.
Okay, let's see. Annual report to the town. What is that?
Does the task force have to
Yes,
do
to-
that?
I've been asked to put together an annual report.
Okay.
Um,
I have till the 22nd. We have another meeting before then. I'm starting work on a draft. It's really just the guiding principles and the who the members are and so on and so forth. And I'll send it out to everybody, and we can approve it at the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay, I believe we've approved all existing meeting minutes to date.
And we don't have any new minutes, do we, to approve?
So I think we can skip
I
that.
haven't seen any.
Oh, I have one other thing. I got the town sent me an email with an invoice from Innes Associates to pay. I'm not sure if we want to review it, everyone review it, or whether we just approve it because they did the work and
I would
let the
say
town pay it.
isn't that up to Greg? I mean, maybe you could review it with Greg, because Greg's the
Yeah,
one.
that's
Andrea
fine.
has to review it,
Yeah,
and then she sends it to Jennifer to be paid.
okay, all right.
And she'll make sure that it's in accordance with the contract and that we have enough money
Left to complete.
put aside to pay it.
Okay, good. That's what I'll do.
Yeah.
Any comments from the public?
Okay, there were people, oh yeah, here we go.
Good.
I'm
There are.
going to try and unmute.
people may have to unmute
Oh,
themselves,
all right.
but call on people.
Sarah Pierce, I'm asking you to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Yes, thank you, Sarah Pierce, 9 Friend Street. I did have a few questions. I'll try to keep it brief. I was on for the 5:30 meeting and was also obviously on for this one, but wanted to ask a few things. Definitely felt like the 5:30 meeting had a certain message, and it's a bit conflictual with this meeting. But now that we're here, I'll just stick with this meeting. So Mr. Morse had mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, and in the other meeting as well, that 4 stories or less had been agreed upon as acceptable within the half-mile radius. Is that right?
I think that's the target. It has not been approved.
Okay, well, just suggested, I guess, would be the right term, not
We
approved, but
haven't pulled together any specifications with respect to zoning.
But we did
okay.
adopt some general
Yeah.
principles, and
It
one
was
of
a
them.
general principle.
That within
A general principle or a rule. I just heard 4 stories or less quite a bit.
Mhm.
And then he went on to say that there was, in that area of Harbor Point that is now being overlooked for whatever reasons. I wish someone could put some clarity on that, but before that there would be 3 stories of residential with either parking or commercial below. And that we've gone over and over with residents really driving home the fact they want to preserve the state of Manchester as a small, historical, quaint town. That is Rantoul Street right there. Taste Bud's Kitchen, 3 stories of apartments above it. That is all of Rantoul Street. That is 4 stories with either parking or commercial below. So I don't see how that isn't Rantoul Street. If you could just explain that.
We haven't had that discussion.
And in fact, that particular piece of property is
Yeah.
not in,
Right.
No, not that particular piece, but just in general, if there's talk about, well, you did have that discussion earlier about Mr. Moore said 3 stories of residential with parking or commercial space below.
But we haven't agreed to that.
Okay, well then what would happen if the person who owns, let's say, a majority of the Harbor Point area decides to do that kind of zoning on their own? Would we be looking at like a double density issue?
They can't do zoning on their own. The town has to approve the zoning.
town meeting.
Town meeting.
Town meeting.
Well, the town meeting has to approve the MBTA zoning, but they don't have to approve a private developer zoning.
Sure they do.
That goes to the,
No. That is,
Exactly.
that property is subject to all existing town zoning regulations. A property owner cannot do their own zoning. They would have to apply for a variance, if it's outside
Right.
the zoning, or go to the planning board, or,
but that's not the town meeting though, right? Am I misunderstanding it? I'm saying the MBTA has to go in front of the town meeting. But
Right.
if that developer decides he wants to do 3 stories, sure, he would have to technically go in front of the planning board, go in front of the zoning board, but the planning board approves a lot, and the zoning board very rarely says no to variances.
that's
And
incorrect.
so I'm just, well, I'm just saying, if you look at the record, I've looked at some of it, and there aren't a lot that
You
have
missed the
been
December
denied.
meeting.
Oh, I missed every meeting in December. You're right about that, definitely. It's just concerning because if that project started, let's say at Harbor Point, and he decided he was going to overbuild, who is going to police that? Who would stop that?
He has to get a building permit. The building inspector says that doesn't comply with the zoning. And depending on exactly what part of the zoning, he has to get permission from the planning board and the zoning board of appeals. And
Right.
it is very unlikely, in my opinion, that the citizens on those 2 boards are going to permit the kind of building that you're talking about. And as an aside, it has nothing to do with the MBTA zoning.
No, I
He could do
completely
that.
understand that. It's 2 steps. That's why I was saying there could be a scenario in reality that if he decided to do something, I mean, the community center's lease was also supposed to be renewed, and that didn't happen. So things change. So I'm just saying, like, in reality, things do change, and he could decide, apparently, that whoever owns this property is a pretty powerful property owner in town. It seems like people do not want to interact with whoever they are for whatever reason, but that it may not be so above board. I don't know how you would phrase it, but
That, he can do that today, and under the law, we can't change that.
right. So that's what I'm saying. So if he can do that,
You can't do
and then
that.
we have the MBTA zoning that's in a different area, we would have double the density, and
Okay,
we would be doing it under MBTA, and he would be doing it under his own right.
he doesn't have the right,
Well, if he gets a permit, he will.
but he has to get permit from probably at least 2 boards.
So what's your question?
Well, my question I have many questions, but basically,
I'm
Thank you.
hearing a lot
Mrs.
of
Gilbert.
comments. I'm wondering what your question is.
my question is a concern of, are we actually aiming to preserve Manchester by the Sea if we are allowing 4-story buildings to go up in the village?
We haven't said we're allowing 4-story buildings in the village.
You said in the 0.5-mile radius.
We're looking at it.
But
Okay,
yes.
I'm just asking.
To answer your question, the answer is yes. Our goal is to preserve the character of the town. It might include some story buildings. There are some now. So the answer is yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for your answer.
I think also, Sarah, if I'm remembering correctly, the part of the conversation you're referring to, we were talking about 3 as a number, but then there was a discussion about perhaps at Newport Park building a higher level back to allow for more affordable units, building a higher level back from the street. And that's where the discussion of 4 as a possibility came in. So there was a sensitivity to the kind of look of things, and that preserving the character of the town was part of that, I believe.
Okay, no, I did hear all of that. There's been a lot of things that were said and discussed between the 5:30 to 6:30 and now this meeting. So, okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Next question.
I don't see any. No more hands.
Not that I see.
Great.
All right, having addressed or had the public comment,
I move to adjourn.
Wait, ask if there's any other matters.
Oh.
are
Any
there
other
any
matters?
other
Sorry.
administrative matters?
I don't have any.
None?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned.